Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Divers Ready. My name's James and welcome to this, the next in our series of videos called Quick Tips, where I take a topic within scuba diving and try and cram as much of my knowledge about that topic into a video 5 minutes or less, and usually fail, but it's a valiant effort. I try, I really do. This week we're talking about tank transmitters, or air integrated systems, or wireless tank transmitters, or tank pods, whatever you want to call them. So if you haven't done so already, make your next dive on our subscribe button and click that little bell icon. It doesn't cost you guys a thing and it really helps us out to keep making these videos, while I head over to the workbench and get set up to tell you all about these things. Let's start with some basics. What is a tank pressure transmitter? It's a small device, a module that screws into the first stage of your regulator via a high pressure port, and it allows high pressure air to enter the housing and hit a pressure plate, which translates that pressure to a digital signal, which is then transmitted to a receiver, normally your dive computer, and therefore that allows you to read the pressure of gas remaining in your cylinder on your dive computer screen together with all your other dive data. And this system is known as AI, not artificial intelligence, but air integration. This is known as an air integrated system. Some things you should know if you're looking to invest in your first AI system are that nearly always the tank pressure transmitter is sold separately from the computer. Now, you can find deals out there where you buy this computer and you get a free transmitter, and those are fantastic, but they're not always available. So for budgetary purposes, you want to kind of look at, okay, well, I've got this much to spend on the computer. Is that the computer and the transmitter, or one or the other? So for example, at the top end here, the Garmin Descent Mark II is $1,500 for the computer, and then it's $400 for the transmitter. So you've got to think about that from a budgetary point of view. Second thing to know is that not all transmitters work with all computers. So you can't really mix and match unless you know what you're doing, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But it's always best practice to buy the same brand transmitter as computer. The third thing you want to know is that oftentimes the computer manufacturers will put out two versions of the same computer, and it's important that you get the air integrated capable version if you want to use it with a transmitter. So for example, Mr. Shearwater Perdix here is available in Shearwater Perdix and Shearwater Perdix AI, and only the AI one works with the transmitter. How do the transmitters actually work then? Okay, well, I've got four. I've already mentioned the Garmin and the Shearwater. This is a Suunto D6i, and this is an Aqualung i770R, both with their corresponding transmitters. And you can divide these into two basic groups if I put a line here. These three are radio transmitters, and the Garmin is sonar. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi at the time of recording this video do not work underwater. So we're using radio technology or sonar. Let's talk about the radio technology first. This is somewhere normally in the frequency 38 kilohertz to 40 kilohertz, depending on the different tank pressure transmitters. And that's about the infrared spectrum, so medium, low frequency transmission. If you want an appropriate analogy, it's about the same frequency as the TV remote or the key fob unlock for your car. Now, whilst you can unlock your car from across a car park parking lot from 100 meters away, in water, these transmitters normally work between 8 and 10 feet as a maximum, and that's because water is a lot denser than air. That's where sonar comes in. As anyone who's ever sailed in a submarine or watched any of the fantastic submarine movies that are out there — I'm addicted to submarine movies, love them — will know sonar has a far greater range. It's capable of, working out how far objects are underwater over hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. And that's because sonar works on ultra low frequencies, somewhere in the 1 to 10 kilohertz range. So that's what Garmin decided to go for their technology, because they already have sonar technology that they use in their fish finding equipment for boats and such. Now, that does give Garmin one advantage, and that's that the range is greater underwater, up to 60 feet according to the user manual, and that means that one Garmin computer can receive a transmitter from a different diver, someone further away. Now, earlier I mentioned that it's always best practice to buy the same brand transmitter as the computer that you're investing in, and that's because of those radio frequencies. If your transmitter is transmitting at one frequency and your computer isn't dialed in to pick up that frequency, they're not going to match, they're not going to be able to sync. There are exceptions where you can cross one brand of transmitter with a different computer. So for example, I happen to know that the Shearwater transmitter is compatible with Oceanic and a couple of other brands because they work on the same frequency. Let's talk about setting a new transmitter up. So the first thing you need to do is assemble the transmitter to the first stage. So what you want to do is take a high pressure port plug out on the side of the regulator that you're going to wear your computer on. That's important so that it can get a nice clear signal. And then you're going to screw the tank pressure transmitter straight into the first stage. Now you're going to do that by screwing it in using the tank pressure itself until you get finger tight, and then you're going to tighten it using this nut here, which is built into the housing of each of these transmitters. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, because oftentimes you can't get a regular wrench in that space between the first stage and the transmitter housing. So one handy little tip that I have is to keep those wrenches that come with an IKEA whatever I built with this, and you slip it in there, and that just happens to be the perfect size and thinness to tighten that transmitter up just a quarter turn, and then you're set. And then you need to attach your regulator to a tank, and that will activate the transmitter to start sending a signal. It will activate as soon as it's pressurized, and then you need to pair it in your computer. So that means going into the settings for the AI on the different menus on these things and having your computer search for the transmitter. Now sometimes that happens automatically, and sometimes you need to input data. So for example, there is a 5-digit number on the Garmin transmitter, which I actually had to manually input into the computer to make sure that those two are unique and that that computer is receiving from that exact transmitter. And then you're off to the races. So then you should have your tank pressure displayed and you go diving. That's fantastic. Also of note is that some computers can receive multiple transmissions. So you might have, for example, side mount 2 independent bottles with you, and you can have a transmitter on each one and have both pressures on that computer. The Garmin computer can do up to 5 transmitters. So if it was me plus 4 students, I could put a transmitter in all their regulators and have all their tank pressures at the same time. From an instructor point of view, pretty cool. For the average diver, probably not much use unless you don't trust your buddy and you want to make sure they're not lying to you about how much gas they've got left. But anyway, if that's the case, you probably need a new buddy, but there we go. AI systems work best when there's direct line of sight between the transmitter and the receiver, your computer. So the best way to have it is to have the tank pressure transmitter screwed into the same side of the regulator as the arm that you wear your computer on, and then they've got nice direct line of sight with your arms out in front of you. But there may be occasions where you drop your arm or you point out there somewhere and that line of sight is lost and the transmission is lost. You shouldn't worry. Normally it will regain connectivity and redisplay within a matter of seconds automatically. So if you see that it's flashing or if the transmission is lost, just try putting your computer nearer to the transmitter and picking that signal back up again. If you have really long arms or if you're wearing a bunch of bulky gear, it is often a good idea to put the transmitter on an extender hose, basically a short 6-inch HP hose that then screws into the first stage of your regulator that just has the transmitter stick out a little bit further. Now, if you only take one thing away from this video, I'd like it to be this. My top piece of advice if you're using a transmitter is to always back it up with an SPG. So an analog pressure gauge, which I've already made a quick tips video about SPGs, I'll link it up above there, is the best way to back up a transmitter. Now, for example, the Sunto, which is the oldest of the 4 here, this transmitter gave you no warning at all when the battery was dying. It just died. So if that was halfway through the dive, up you come. That's it, the dive's over. Modern transmitters are better at giving you a battery warning, so you kind of know and you can change it out before the dive if the pressure in the transmitter is low. But at the same time, I never fully trust them. There's a lot of failure points on these. There's a lot of screws in the housing. The housing themselves are plastic. You can knock it underwater. Lots of things could go wrong. So I always like to back it up with a SPG. Now, what happens if you're looking to get into AI, but the regulator you're using only has one high pressure port? And that can be the case for many people. Not to worry, you can buy a splitter block that screws into the high pressure port and gives you 2 high pressure port outlets. Therefore, you can screw your transmitter into one and still have an analog SPG. You're welcome. On the subject of batteries then, one feature I always look for when I'm getting an AI system is that the battery in the transmitter is user changeable, by which I mean it has some kind of a cap on the end that I put a coin into, and I take the cap off, switch out the batteries, re-grease the O-ring, and replace the cap and tighten it back up myself. You can do that while the transmitter is still on the first stage, as long as the system isn't pressurized, and you're off to the races. The Sunto here, which is an older model, I'm not sure if the newer Sunto transmitters are user-changeable batteries, but in the old days, according to the manual, this had to have its battery changed by an authorized service technician. So that was a massive pain in the butt. Your battery dies in your transmitter and you've got to run around town to get it changed. It's kind of annoying. So I'm not sure if that's changed with the updated models, but definitely look for user-changeable battery in your AI selection. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's everything I know about tank transmitters that now goes into your knowledge bank as a scuba diver. If you enjoyed this video, please give it the old thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if I missed anything about these transmitters. Do you use one? Do you not use one? If so, why or why not? Really appreciate hearing from all of you guys. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching. Over here, I'll put some of our other videos, including the whole quick tips series, so you can check those out if you haven't done so already. And until next time, my name's James. This was your Divers Ready quick tips video for this week. Dive safe, dive often.